back. It is the Vegas Take Sharp and Shapiro. That was bringing me back to the day. My thanks to 18-year NHL veteran goaltender Sean Burke. I grew up a Hartford Whalers season ticket holder, so that was pretty cool talking to him. And, of course, the Vegas Golden Knights, the playoffs are going to start next week, and it should be a lot of fun. But, oh, yeah, I just heard we have a couple pretty big basketball games tomorrow, right? The NCAA tournament, it's the Final Four. Auburn, Virginia, Michigan State. You know, I don't know. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. And Texas Tech, of course. How could I forget them? 4 great coaches, and we got one on the line with us right now. 60th all-time winning in NCAA tournament wins. He's coached, of course, Iowa State, recently Colorado State. He's been all over the place, and lucky to call my good friend Larry Eustachy. Coach, I appreciate you coming on. How are you?
I'm doing really, really, really good, Brian.
I am happy.
Really
did you spend all day on the beach today or something? What happened?
No. I hung out with an old friend and just kind of talked old times and kind of relaxed. Got to see you this weekend. We had a good time.
We did.
We purchased our house in Las Vegas.
Congratulations on that.
We just can't let you know where we live.
I thought you were going to give out the address on the air.
Well, we'll give it to everybody but you.
Yeah,
tell you where to go.
That's probably a good idea.
I was just sitting here thinking, okay, so, you know, it's going to come from left field, but
that's
in your opinion, who is more committed to their university? A coach, an athletic director, or a president?
Wow, that is a really, really good question. You know what? I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'm not saying this because you've been a coach, but I'm going to say the coach. And the reason why I'm going to say that, and nothing against some athletic directors, but I think, and this happens in coaching too, right, where you want to move on to another university and further your career. But I feel like there's so many coaches out there that stay at one spot and they love it there, like the guy in Oakland, right? There are a lot of stories like that, and it's rare, but it does happen. I feel like athletic directors are always looking to move up the ladder. And no, I'm not necessarily talking about the athletic director here, but maybe I am. I've said that before. I would say you're right. Her, matter of fact, if you looked in her hallway, her bags are probably packed. You're probably right on that one. I would say the over/under is probably a year or so. But I think I would go coach, president, athletic director. That would be the order that I would put it in, and you know more than I do. But that's just, I think there are a Bruce Pearl, for example, right? Who perfect to talk about him because he's in the Final Four. I remember when he was at Tennessee, Coach, when he took his shirt off and he went to a women's basketball game, and he would paint his stomach orange. Right? And he would go to games and he would have that much passion for the university. And he wanted, just like you, he wanted to win so bad. And I'm not sure you see a lot of presidents or athletic directors showing that kind of enthusiasm that a head coach would express.
Yeah, I would agree. I remember I told you the time that we played Bruce when he was at Milwaukee, and when I was at Iowa State, I went in the locker room, and it was like he got out of a sauna. I mean, he put everything into it. He had his shirt off and he had his tank top on, and it was drenched. But I don't know if you're correct. I don't know if I because I was thinking of all the schools I've been at. I always like to stay at a place and build that program to where I left it better than it was. Mm-hmm. Athletic directors are certainly on the move. I was thinking about the athletic director at Utah State. Everybody says it's a perfect job and we're going to stay here and we love it here, and then more money's thrown at them or
of course
a better situation, they leave. But the athletic director at Utah State, told the biggest booster, this is where I'm going to be. This is, I love it here, et cetera, et cetera. Well, 2 weeks later, he goes to Pittsburgh, and then 1 year later, he goes to Oregon State. Mm. So, and you have that right to do that. But I was thinking about presidents.
Yeah.
And, I worked for some great presidents, and they really, I think the longevity of a president is I think the average president lasts, 5 years? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many things coming at them from so many things can go wrong. So many issues can pop up that ultimately fall on the president. But I find presidents very loyal to the universities they get at, and they're there, and not wanting to. They're not always looking for jobs.
And you know what, Larry? I just had a friend that just texted me that, in a way, agrees with you. And he said he would say presidents, and he said because they have to deal with all aspects of the university and don't have to move up or look for a better deal necessarily. Would you agree with that?
I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
And not to say that, everybody has to win. I mean, a president has to win. He or she has to have enrollment. Right. They have budgets they have to balance. They have tenured teachers. You can get a vote of no confidence. I mean, a lot of things can go wrong as a president, and not nearly for a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you basically have to win, and there's a few things that can get you, but a coach can get a president.
Yeah, no doubt.
A lot.
Yeah, no doubt. If you're just joining us, one of the all-time winningest coaches, 60th on the list, Larry Eustachy, joining us. And before I ask you about the Final Four, we always have one or two guys that want to ask you some questions. Why don't I open up the phone line here at 257-5396 if you have a question for Larry Eustachy. Again, that number to call, 257-5396. It could be about the Final Four. It could be about his career. Now's your opportunity, 257-5396. Let's go to Scott. Scott, you're on with Larry Eustachy. Go ahead.
Coach, here's my question for you. When you had it rolling at Utah State, you remember that, like back in the mid-'90s?
Absolutely.
You got a guy out of California. He was the California JC State Player of the Year, Roddy Anderson from Columbia JC. How did you get him to come all the way up there to Utah State? What was your recruiting pitch?
Well, my recruiting pitch has always been the same. I just tell them what to expect. Here's how it's going to be. And that's a great story, Roddy Anderson. And
I remember him. He was a stud at Columbia. He was the JC State Player of the Year, 93.
Just got put in the JC Hall of Fame in California.
And, he was a bull, huh? 6'3", like 210, could just rack it.
Yeah, and you talk about this is what's lacking these days. So Roddy Anderson, I told him what to expect. I told him he was probably going to have to play point guard, which he was really more of a five-man. But we need you to win, and this is the position you're going to have to play. And he's a tough kid, and boom, he just loved the brutal honesty that we told him. And then as the recruiting process went on, I made one final visit, and I went into his home, and it was a dead period. So he had committed to us. No need to go see him again. Just wanted to touch base with him. And I was told by, I'll never take the blame for anything, so let's put it on one of my assistants. And he said, oh, yeah, go see him. And it probably was my fault. So I went in there and wanted to meet his mom, et cetera, and because he was at a junior college out in the middle of nowhere in California. So Gary Colson, the coach at Fresno at the time, was quite upset and thought that we gained a huge advantage in spite of Roddy committing to us. The last visit meant nothing. So I thought this was terrific and one of the greatest decisions the NC2A has ever made. They said, here's what we're going to do. You're going to have to uncancel your visit to Fresno and go. You are not allowed to talk to Utah State for a month.
Wow.
And if you still want to go to Utah State, then you can accept the scholarship. You know what that and you know the rest of the story.
Wow.
He went to Fresno. You knew they threw everything in the kitchen sink at him as far as maybe the negative recruiting, maybe the why would you want to do this? They had their best shot at him.
Mm-hmm.
And he stuck to that commitment. And where do you see that these days?
Yeah, it's rare.
I mean, really.
Yeah, it's rare.
You just don't see it. And it's a great point that we put him on. We just put a saddle on him and rode him. We won 9 of our last 10 games.
Wow.
Once Roddy got comfortable at the point guard position, but just a fine person.
Coach, what do you think is the hardest and by the way, thank you for this call, Scott, 257-5396. What do you think is the hardest you've ever worked to have to recruit somebody, and you say to yourself, wow, I had to work my ass off to finally convince this kid to play for me? Do you recall a player or two where you say that?
Yeah, I can think of a few, and they didn't turn out to be real good players. What really our great players made one visit and canceled the rest and bought into what we were talking about.
Wow.
And it was a simple selling point. This is not for everybody. We're going to be we're going to play the game right way.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to out-condition everybody. We're going to be stronger than everybody, and we're going to be more mentally tough with everybody. And because of that, you're going to have to be put in some very difficult situations in practice that make the game much easier. Now, of course, what precedes me is a lot of things that are untrue, like, I put a guy in a shed and lock him up.
Did somebody really say that?
No, that's what Leach did at Texas Tech.
Putting somebody in a shed, that's something Bobby Knight would do. No, I don't know. Maybe.
I think the players put me in a shed a few times, but we were just brutally honest, and that's what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the problem comes that, and you're going to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
And number one, if you do not go to class, we lost games because of guys not believing us that you're going to turn this paper in, you're going to have this or that, you're not going to make the road trip. So, Colorado State, 19 guys, the 19 players that finished their eligibility with me in my most recent job, all graduated.
Yeah.
So I think it's a simple pitch. I think these kids that love to get 100 letters a day from you, or young men, that you have to call 3 times a day.
Sounds like one of my ex-girlfriends.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and those they're insecure. They're not really. Their mental makeup is not best for competitive athletics.
And that's not the kind of player you want. Yeah, no doubt. If you're just joining us, Coach Larry Eustachy. Final Four, Coach. Okay, so I know you're very close with Tom Izzo. In fact, I don't want to bring back a bad memory, but I was just watching on YouTube your game at Iowa State versus Michigan State, where you guys were up and then you lost the lead late in that game. And I know last time I had you on, you were talking about a double foul that just you went crazy. And then I watched it, and now I can understand why you went crazy, because I saw that double foul that they called. But I remember when you got ejected from that game, and there was like 10 seconds left, the game was over anyway, and then you gave Izzo, you shook his hand. Do you remember what he said to you then? And I know you guys have been good friends ever since, right?
There was just a lot of mutual respect. I think we're very similar, and it looked like that was planned. I had planned to get thrown out of that game. Just because, sometimes you look like you're completely out of control, but it wasn't. I was just wanting to let the referees know how poorly I thought it was done, and then I was, I thought gracious is not, I don't know what the word is, but I really wanted to congratulate Tom and his players.
Sure.
That they played a great game, and it was actually the championship game, because we've talked about it. They cakewalked to the Final Four after that game.
They did, no doubt about it. Number to call, 257-5396. If you have a question for Larry Eustachy. Let's go to Chris. Chris, you're on with Larry Eustachy. How are you?
I'm good, gentlemen. How you doing, Coach Eustachy? Always good to hear you on the radio there talking with B-Shap. It's fun stuff.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
wanted to get your take. You got four, very intriguing coaches here in the Final Four. Obviously, with Bruce Pearl at Auburn, you of course have Randy Bennett at Virginia. You talked about Tom Izzo at Michigan State, and of course Chris Beard, kind of a younger guy there at Texas Tech. Obviously I'm a Michigan State fan, so I'm kind of pulling for Sparty to roll through here. But out of those other three coaches that haven't won a national championship, who do you think will appreciate the most and will have the most appreciation if they're able to knock out a national championship coming up on Monday?
I think that'd be a coin flip between Bennett and Bruce. You get older. Chris is at a point where I was, and I didn't really realize that I would never have another opportunity again. And there's a great chance Chris will never have another opportunity. So those two, I'm pulling for Tom. But what's really interesting is that you throw Osei J. Wright in there, and you probably got the 5 best coaches in the country. And I don't want to offend, some really good friends of mine out there, but those dudes can coach. Those 4 that are in the Final Four, they can coach. And it's such an interesting story. Like for Chris Beard, 7 years ago, he called my best friend, Tim Floyd, and said, hey, it didn't work out at Texas Tech. Can I be your 4th assistant? 7 years ago. Now he's in the Final Four.
Wow.
And is arguably, for sure, top 4, 5, 10 coach in the country. So I think you got some interesting matchups, but you've got some great coaches. And, of course, Bruce is I think if I don't say Bruce over all of them, Charles Barkley would be very upset with me.
Can you guys imagine, though, what it's going to be like next week on, inside the NBA and on Monday night on CBS when Barkley, if somehow Auburn is in the mix or finds a way to knock out a championship, Coach, he's going to be insufferable, right? Like we're not going to want to deal with Charles Barkley on Monday night if that happens.
Oh, I've told you that Charles did a benefit for me 3 days in Logan, Utah. And he's as finest person as I've ever met and takes time with everybody. And he also likes to wear things out. So he will have every color of Auburn. He'll be painted Auburn. He'll do it all. And he'll ask Shaq, how did your team do this year? He's as funniest guy as you'll ever meet. And you know what? Charles Barkley is so loyal to Auburn and so loyal to Sonny Smith, his coach. Mm-hmm. He's really a special person. There's a lot of great stories going on in this Final Four. It seems like almost more than in recent time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you for the call, Chris. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Larry Eustachy joining us on the line. All right, so that was kind of my next question here. Of course, you have Texas Tech and Virginia, just 2 unbelievably tough, physical, defensive teams. And then you have Auburn, a team that likes to run, a team that likes to shoot the 3. And if they're making that shot, I think they're the best team in the country right now. And then you have Tom Izzo and Michigan State, very, very good point guard. They're just a solid team on both ends of the floor, Coach. So how do you see this thing going? Give me Larry Eustachy's picks here in the Final Four. What happens tomorrow? Who do you think is in the championship game? And in the end, who do you think cuts down the nets?
I think Michigan State beats Tech, and I think Virginia beats Auburn. And I say that because I have all the respect in the world, again, for all the coaches. But Virginia, you're going to have to beat them. And there's been times where Auburn has beaten themselves. you're going to have Virginia will not beat themselves more than any team in the Final Four. I think Michigan State is similar, but Virginia does not make many mistakes. They just don't make mistakes. They're there in all the right positions at all the right times. That they can score enough, but they are extremely hard to score against, and they can control the tempo. I think they will slow that game down, and it will really frustrate Auburn. Now watch, they'll probably lose by 40, and my handicapping career will go down the drain.
Well, you're 1-0 because you gave me Texas Tech last week, and you are absolutely right on that one. So I agree with you, by the way. I think the two favorites are going to be in the finals. I think it's going to be Michigan State and Virginia. If that does happen, Coach, how do you see that matchup going? Who do you think wins the whole thing?
God, they're very similar, and they don't have a weakness. Neither team has a weakness. They really, really don't. They don't do anything that they're tall enough, they're long enough, they're athletic enough. They can score, they can guard, they can rebound. May come down to the officiating, and that'd be a shame. But it's two very similar teams playing each other.
Interesting. Well, we certainly hope it doesn't come down to officiating.
So it'll probably be Virginia Tech and Auburn in the finals.
We'll find out about that. But you know what? As far as the point spreads go, Virginia is favored by, I believe, 5.5. Word came out that a couple players in Auburn have a virus. Doesn't seem serious, but the sniffles from now, I think the spread is up to 6. And Michigan State, last I checked, it's around 2.5 or 3. So I guess we'll have to see what happens. But hey, Coach, I am really glad that you are going to be calling Vegas your home. I think you're going to enjoy it here. Last I checked, there's a lot of things to do in Las Vegas.
Yeah, we're so excited. We haven't been this excited in a long, long time. We left Colorado. We moved to Chico, then we had the fire there.
Right.
And we came down to our place down here in Del Mar. And now we're going to Vegas, and it's all right within a year, a little bit over a year. So,
right.
You make money off moves if they're tax write-offs. So
that's true.
I'm plenty of tax write-offs.
That's true. Just don't spend that money on slot machines. That's all.
Yeah, I've always loved. Yeah, you taught me how to play the right calls in poker, and then when you left, I got away from it, and also got away from my wallet. So.
Well, that's okay. That happens to the best of us. You just got to have discipline when you live in Las Vegas, Coach. I can't thank you enough again for taking some time to join us. I could talk basketball with you forever, but good talking to you. It was great hanging out with you this weekend, and can't wait till you guys get down here, and thank you so much for taking the time, and I know you'll hopefully come in studio when you're out here, and we'll have a good time.
Well, send me the other part of your show tonight. What did you talk about prior to me coming on?
I had an former NHL player, Sean Burke, talking the Knights, and then for an hour I was bashing both Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That's what I do. You call it as you see it. I try.
You're not. It is so insulting to turn on one or the other station.
You are right.
You know what they are.
You are. You are. You are right.
Matter.
Yes.
They're going to take the opposite, and that.
Yep. And I try to be fair. I try to be fair.
You are fair.
I appreciate that. Fair. That means a lot, Coach. I appreciate that. Hey, thanks for coming on, Larry. I appreciate it. All right, take care. Larry Eustachy joining us, everybody. We appreciate it. Kempson coming up next, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.